Hi everybody, this is Oxangelone, and today I'm giving out my full PVE/rotation guide for the Subtlety Rogue. A viewer requested this topic, and I figured this would be good content to give everybody. In my opinion, the Subtlety Rogue is one of the hardest classes to play because of its interconnectivity between its rotation, talents, abilities, and its artifact trait. And you really have to understand the inner workings of the class to maximize your performance. So before I get started, I'm going to assume you know the basic abilities, the basic rotation of the Subtlety Rogue. You know what the abilities are. So I don't want to spend too much time going through each ability, but what I will do is give you the little hidden nuances and some little tips here and there. So let's go through your major cooldowns first, and then we'll go into our talents, rotation, and your artifact tree. So your biggest rotation is your Shadow Blade. It's a 3-minute cooldown. Compared to other classes with 3-minute cooldowns, it's alright. It's okay. I never really got excited about this ability. I just use it in the beginning of a fight and during Lust. Pretty simple. Why during Lust? Because you're also potting at that time, and you have that haste. You have a little bit of a haste buff, so you're able to pump out more shadow strikes to do more damage. You have your Vanish. Vanish is basically your get out of jail free card. It's that escape rope in Pokemon. It's just an extra Shadow Dance charges. So if in case you fuck up somewhere, or your symbols of refreshing your symbols of death or Nightblade, it's just there to help you out. Evasion, Cloak of Shadows, and Feint are basically the rogues. That's the reason why rogues are brought to raids, to tease mechanics. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but yeah, that's what it's for, just to cheese mechanics. Sprint is pretty interesting because it's actually another Shadow Dance charge if used correctly. So during any boss fight, there's a little bit of downtime. You might have to wait for a mechanic. An example of this could be, let's say, Ursoc when he's about to charge, right? He's going across half of the room. You're not going to DPS him. So what you can do is, let's say you want to refresh that Symbols of Death. All you have to do is press Sprint, and after 3 seconds, you automatically go to Stealth. So it's basically another Shadow Dance charge, and that's actually from your artifact tree. So let's go into our talents. So I'm actually running Weapon Master rather than Master Subtlety. The reason being is I like a little bit of RNGesus, right? You have a 6% chance to hit the target twice each time they deal damage. So you have a chance to do double damage. Double the damage. And it's actually good for Shuriken Storm because when you're AoEing, if that hits, you're up there. And I simmed both talents, and they were relatively the same. But the problem that I have with Master Subtlety, let's just put this on Master Subtlety on right here, because somebody will have to re-stealth. It gives you a 10% damage buff. It's a consistent damage buff whenever you're in stealth. But the problem that I have with this is that, let's say you have 6 combo points and you're running in your Shadow Dance charges just ended. You only have, look right here, only have 6 seconds of that 10% buff. And once that 10% buff is gone, and you're just sitting on 6 combo points because you have no finisher, you're fucked. You have to wait till your next Shadow Dance to use that finisher. And this comes to my second theme of the Subtlety Rogue. It's accelerating your finishers. And I'm going to talk about why accelerating your finishers is incredibly important and how it really ties into your interconnectivity. So that's why I chose Weapon Master. I like a little bit of RNGesus, and I don't want to handle that headache of, I'm sitting on 6 combo points, I have no energy, I have to wait till my next Shadow Dance. So I want to accelerate my finishers. That's the mindset that I have. Subterfuge is a must. Increases your Shadow Dance by 2 seconds. That means you do more Shadow Strikes. Your abilities requiring stealth can be still used for 3 seconds after stealth breaks. Like again, use more Shadow Strikes. That's a must. Now, Deeper Stratagem. This is one of the most, you might think it's such a simple talent, but it affects your decision making to a whole another level. And the reason why is because it goes to increases the maximum number increases. You have a maximum of 6 combo points rather than 5, and increases your finishing moves, and your finishing moves deal 10% more increased damage. And the reason why this is, I guess this is a must, is because of your passives. And this is the whole debate between 5 to 6 combo point finishers. Do I force that 6 combo point finisher, or do I just do it at 5? I'm going to actually go through the rest of the talents before I talk about deeper stratagem and the 5 versus 6, the question between 5 combo point finisher versus 6 combo point finisher. These two talents, just basically nothing there. This is just a defensive cooldown, and this doesn't really affect you. Premeditation, your shadow strikes generate additional combo points. So since we have 6 combo points due to deeper stratagem, it only takes 3 shadow strikes to do to get to the full 6 combo points. And Master of Shadows, like I said, accelerating your finishers. Since I'm getting 30 energy, you just enter, so every time you're at 70 energy, you activate your Shadow Dance, and you're up to 100, and you're at 100% energy. That means you can start spending all of your Shadow Strikes, so you don't have to worry about that energy loss. And the reason I have 105 energy is because I have a neck piece that increases my energy by another 5%. But yeah, so this allows you to enter Shadow Dance at 70 energy rather than waiting for a full 100. So the whole concept between 5 combo points versus 6 combo points finishers, this is, like I said, interconnected to all 3 of your passes. And this premeditation is also connected to all 3 of your passives. So your mastery is your finisher damage, finishing moves damage. So every time, the higher mastery, the higher damage your finishing moves does. So that hurts with a deeper stratagem, 6 combo points plus another 10% right there. Relentless strikes. So whenever that's why I recommend, or what? No, not recommend. I'm telling you, do it at 5 finishers, 5 combo point finishers, because you want to accelerate the number of finishers you can do. Because since this is a 20% chance per combo point, at 5 combo points you're guaranteed 40 energy. So you don't have. So if you force at 6, you're losing out on 40 energy right there. And then you have shadow techniques, which is your auto attacks have a chance to generate a combo point. So let's combine this all together. Let's say you're shadow striking, right? You do 1 shadow strike, 2 combo points. Your second shadow strike, you're at 4 combo points. But then, hey, wait a minute. Shadow techniques just activated. Now you're at 5 combo points. So what do? Do you use a finisher, or do you use another shadow strike just to get 6? When you're at 5 combo points, there's always that RNG that you might be hitting 6. So there's no point of doing another shadow strike, which is an extra 2. So now you'll be at 7 combo points. So that's just a waste of energy. And if you actually look at the bottom here, shadow strike costs 40 energy, right? While eviscerate costs 35 energy. So if I shadow strike from the 5 combo point to the 6 combo point, you'll have no energy to use that eviscerate. And if you can't use your eviscerate right away, you're losing out on more shadow strikes, and you're losing out on more finishers. And now let's go to the second part of our interconnectivity here, which is your artifact traits. The definition of why I keep saying interconnectivity and accelerating is right here. Finality increases every time you do your second finishing move. It's empowered by 150%. Another reason why you gotta use your 5 combo point finishers rather than forcing 6, because you're losing out on finality. You're losing out on the chance to push in more shadow strikes and using those finishers. And then your second golden trait here, a curious soul. Every time you shadow strike, you're dealing a 40,844 damage for my character. So if I use that 5-point finisher, I'm getting my 40 energy back, and this gives me the opportunity to push in more shadow strikes. That means I'm getting 40,844 damage per shadow strike. And this accelerates the number of combo points that I get due to premeditation, right? So this is why you have to use finishers at 5 combo points. 6 combo points is just, hey man, I got lucky. I got, you know, it was a good move, but don't force it. Don't force that 6 combo point finisher. So I hope that cleared everything on why you should always use a 5-point finisher versus forcing a 6-point finisher. So now let's actually go into our abilities, our rotation. So the two major things that you have to worry about as a subtlety rogue is your symbols of death, which gives you a buff, and your Nightblade, which is your damage over time, and it's a finisher. So these are two incredibly important abilities. Now these two abilities there's a factor involved which is called pandemic. So in the case of symbols of death, you get a 20% damage increase for 35 seconds. That pandemic is basically you're able to refresh. Let's say when you refresh this buff at a certain threshold, is going to add that old duration to your new application. So in the case of symbols of death, you can refresh it at 10.5 seconds, and it'll add that 10.5 seconds to the full 35 seconds of an overall 45 second symbols of death. And for Nightblade, you refresh it at 5.5 seconds. So it will be a total of 13 seconds for Nightblade. And why is this important? Meaning you have to refresh it less number of times, so you're saving energy. And you're saving energy, you're doing more damage. So an example of, I'm going to show you an example of this pandemic thing is, if you look at here, it's 35 seconds. Now we'll wait till it reaches 10.5 seconds, because that's the threshold. You want to delay it as much as possible, and that as much as possible is 10.5 seconds. The theory crafters actually determined this. I did not. This is not my knowledge, or this is not my thing. So 10.5 seconds, boom, goes to 45 seconds. So that's why it's important to refresh your symbols of death at 10.5 seconds and your Nightblade at 5.5 seconds. So I'm going to do a quick rotation. So how you do it is you do your symbols of death, shadow strike until you hit 5, and use your finishers, because you might have the RNG to get you to 6 based on your passive. And Gorma's Bite, which is your minor cooldown, use it on demand. Use it whenever it's up. Whenever it's up, just use it, because it smoothens out the rotation. So without further ado, we'll do a DPS test on the 110 dummy. So symbols of death, I'm already at 70 energy, so I don't have to worry about it. We'll use our major cooldown, Gorma's Bite, and just pump out damage. So I'm getting lucky with the RNG here. I haven't had to worry about a 5 combo point finisher yet. Right now I'm going to see what's 5 combo points. I use my finisher. You want to accelerate. 5 again, accelerate. Gonna refresh my symbols of death. And at 7 seconds for your Nightblade, that's when you start get to worry about that. You got to really focus on refreshing it. And now I'm going to use my Vanish because I'm running out. And I think this is kind of messed up there, but once we get to 70 energy, we'll use our Shadow Dances. So this is me just going full out. So I was doing 340k. So this is me just pouring out just burning all my Shadow Dances just to show the point on how it works. So 70 energy, that's when you use Shadow Dance. So I'm going to end it here actually. You kind of get the point. So that's basically my Subtlety Rogue guide. I think I pretty much covered everything. So just to conclude everything and conclude all the rotation, keep your symbols of death buff up, keep your Nightblade damage over time up, try to get close to 100% uptime, and make sure you do your logs through Warcraft logs, and it'll tell you how good your uptime is. And that's basically the number one way of improving your performance. Do your shadow dances at 70 energy, keep your Gormas bite up, and use your combo point finishers at 5, because there's always that RNG that might take you to 6, and there's no point of doing it, as I mentioned previously, because you're wasting energy. And the whole point of the subtlety rogue, in my opinion, is to accelerate your finishers. So if you guys like this type of content and you really thought this video was informative, like, comment, subscribe, and if you are interested in more videos, let me know. I actually got a rating in 30 minutes. So hope everyone enjoyed this video, and I'll see everybody later.